Welcome
Oh,
to another episode of Roll or Die. We have the main man for you here. We've had him on twice before. He's back for his third run at this show. He is, for those that don't know, probably one of the main reasons why you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Australia today. He pretty much brought this art to our fair shores. And I am talking about none other than John Will. Thanks for joining us, John.
you're welcome.
Wow, look at that cup, man. That's some serious
Woo!
merchandise there, man.
Now that's Seymour Yang, Miyakatsu.
Oh,
Mhm.
right. The guy, I love
Yeah,
that. That guy entered my life because of Kit Dale, basically. He just made so many funny things about Kit Dale, but he got serious talent, that guy. Serious
he's a
talent.
lot. He's really lovely. I've often taught in anyway. I mean, hello,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
Do go
but
on.
I've taught a bunch of seminars in. I was going, and I'm still doing it this year, even though I said last year was the last time I'll ever do it. But I've got to go to the UK just for a day's work in June. But
Mhm.
and there, people. Yeah, I'm going to do some seminars, and so I'll probably just do 10 or 12 in a week, just get it, and then take a month off with my wife
Mhm.
and Italy stuff. But he always comes.
Awesome.
Seymour always comes. Yeah, he's such a cool. Last year, he paired off with my wife Melissa, and that was really cool. Yeah, because they're both lightweights. But
What's his
he's
jiu-jitsu like? Is his jiu-jitsu as creative as his artwork?
yeah, he's good. He's technical and nice, and he's a good student. You know, he really extracts maximum value. Yeah, and he takes notes and then does it. I think he does he debriefs after seminars and puts it up for people to check it out.
Wow.
He's a lovely guy. So
Awesome.
he
Awesome.
done some artwork for me.
Speaking of merchandise, I guess now is a good time for us, Anton, to drop to the audience that we will have our own merchandise. It's pretty much out there and ready to go. We have rash guards. And John, to thank you for your contribution to Australian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and to Roll or Die podcast. I'm going to make my way down to Geelong so we can give you a rash guard that can hopefully help promote the Roll or Die podcast a little
Wow.
bit more, but just to say thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
Awesome. Actually, on that note, we've got a monthly masters coming up down there. I reckon it'd be really good if we could all get together for that event and try and get a roll in. I'd love to, I don't know if it's all going to work and stuff, but yeah, I forgot you're down that way, John, and
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, I want to get down
Yeah,
that way.
I'm in Geelong, an hour
Yep.
out of Melbourne.
Yeah,
Yep.
awesome, man. So what's getting your attention at the moment, John, in the world of jiu-jitsu? Like not yesterday, not tomorrow, but just today. What do you think of it? What is just where you're like, oh, I've got to give this some more attention right now. What's getting your attention?
Let's see. Nothing in particular, really. I'm a creature of habit. I mean, my life is kind of boring, I guess, for a lot of people. Not for me, but I just do the same things all the time. Apart from being broken up by 2 or 3 trips overseas every year.
Yeah, apart from that.
Yeah, but other than that, it's just my same routine. I get up in the morning and I make a coffee, and then there's usually a black belt comes here to my house in Geelong from Melbourne every day. There's always one come down, and so I train them from 9 till 10 o'clock.
Wow.
I got a home mat, and then I go and do some strength and conditioning work, and then I'm done by 11:30. And then I just I got the rest of the day, and then I do whatever I'm working on or what. And a part of that, is always looking at matches, seeing what's happening on the competitive scene, what's going on. Then I make notes and stuff about that. Then I just should do some study on some other stuff, whatever happens to be piquing my interest. Right now, it's just Japanese history.
Mm.
Mhm.
Um, And then, and then at 5:30, I go into my school for 2 hours, usually Monday through to Thursday. And then that's it. And then I might just have some other little things I'm doing with, some military or government.
I think you're living my dream life, brother. I think you've just set the bar for me for the next 5 to 10 years to try and find my way to that life. That's pretty amazing, brother.
Well, I really enjoy teaching. I love going. I'm like tonight. I'm teaching, going in there. I've got 60 something white belts that'll be on the mat tonight. White belt class, but I'll be teaching that. I love it. I mean, I'm retired, financially speaking, so I don't have to do anything. But I'm still, so if I'm doing something, it's really because I just want to be there and doing it.
Yeah, beautiful, man.
Which is the right reason, right? I mean, there was a time where I had to be places and teach and stuff because I was trying to pay off, my houses and shit. But I mean, I still wanted to be there, but the driving force was I need to pay your mortgage and do all that kind of stuff. But when that goes away and you're still doing it, you know that
yeah,
you like what you're doing.
It just shifted. Yeah.
Yeah.
And John, since we last spoke, which I think was about a year ago, Australians on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu scene internationally have really done well. Is that what are your thoughts around that? Is that surprising to you? Do you think it was just like a matter of time before that came about?
I don't think it's surprising. We had some advantages going back a long way. I mean, some people might look at them as being disadvantaged, but I look at it the complete opposite way. Some people might have said we are disadvantaged because we are removed from, the fountainheads of jiu-jitsu. You had to go to Brazil or America to get world-class, to get time on the mat with world-class people. But I don't, then you come back here and then you work on whatever it is you picked up. And then you go back and test it out again and so forth. But I saw that as an advantage because it meant we had to think for ourselves. We had to come up with solutions to problems that we had. We couldn't wait to go back and get that solution from whoever your coach was. So we had to, Brazil or any other country in the world, they haven't got the monopoly on intelligence and problem solving. So we can do that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of advantages to doing that and making that a habit. In some ways, better than someone who's being spoon-fed. They don't think. They just know I can ask my coach tomorrow night when I rock up, so I'll just do that. Whereas I think out in Australia and New Zealand, I might add, is we got a lot of that happening in Australia and New Zealand. So I think we had that where a lot of, maybe in America, there was less of it going on.
Yeah.
And so I think the only thing that was lacking was we didn't have competition opportunities every week. Now that's changing, right? So, so I think we built a really great base, and it's just that we didn't have the opportunities to present what we've worked out. But now that they're there, it's no surprise to me that we're jumping.
I think one of the disadvantages we have is that we just don't have a wrestling culture like America does, for example. So that's one of the things which stands out to me, is like, how are we doing so well against the Americans, for example? Like, what are your views on that?
It depends on who you train with. I mean, because when I train with the Machados, and Hegan Machado was really into wrestling. He won the California state. I mean, it's not Iowa, but he won the California state championships in both Greco and freestyle when he was there. So when he was young, like 20 years old. So we had guys like Bob Anderson, an amazing wrestling coach, coming to the academy teaching us. So things like, Russian ties, duck unders, arm drags, low singles, high singles, high crotches, and all this stuff. That was all normal part of jiu-jitsu for us. Right. Whereas in a lot of other jiu-jitsu schools, that was not part of their normal jiu-jitsu. In fact, some of the schools over there looked at this is way back, Anton, like 30 years ago. I'm not talking about now.
Yeah.
But way back then, it was like, oh, enemies. They're the enemy, wrestlers.
Yeah.
They're the guys that are going to give us a hard time. The karate guy, the poor little taekwondo guy, forget about that.
Yeah.
It's the wrestlers that they're going to have no gi. You can't choke them. They've got a base, so it's difficult to sweep. You have to go X guard and go under them to topple them over. So they're the ones. So they're the enemy. So we didn't have that culture on the mat where I was training. So they were our friends. So we had guys who were into wrestling. So wrestling was normal for us.
Interesting.
So I think, and because I've trained a few people here in this country, they got that secondhand. They got that wrestling from me. So it's not it's not like growing up in Iowa or something where you're going through high school hitting high crotches every afternoon. But it's not like that. We're not ignorant about it, and we do a little bit every night of that. I mean, most of my warm-ups, a wrestling warm-up, will be up on our feet hitting wrestling moves before we go to our
nice. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Speaking of no-gi, John, what do you think about? There's quite a few academies now that are only no-gi. They pretty much, it's not uncommon for people to be promoted through the belts without ever putting on a gi. I'm not just talking about 10th Planet schools, but all round. Like, from your point of view, what do you think about that?
I can only talk for me, because there's a million ways to approach jiu-jitsu, and there's a million things that people want from jiu-jitsu. That's one of the beautiful things about it. You can be in there for a variety of reasons. It could be social. It can be getting fit. It could be, it could be so many things. Self-defense. It can be combatives that are going to be used in law enforcement and military applications. It can be, so it can just be problem solving. It can be stress relief. It can be competition. So there's so many ways. So I'm not in judgment of anyone. It really doesn't matter. I mean, from that perspective, it doesn't matter if they do. Well, it does, but I was almost going to say it doesn't matter if they do taekwondo. You know what I mean? that might tick some boxes, but it'll give people maybe what they need. Maybe what they need is to make friends. And if they do, if that does the job for them, all power to them. I used to be more critical, but now I'm much more soft in my.
You've mellowed.
I'm an old man. Depends on the environment.
Yeah, exactly.
But but as far as no gi for me goes, I view the gi as it's training wheels. It's like you go out for a bike ride, you want a good experience, so you put some training wheels on the bike and on flat ground so your kid doesn't fall over, so that next day they want to do it again. As opposed to take them out, top of the mountain, no training wheels, go. Now, there'll be some people that will survive that. They'll do it, and they'll just go, you know what? I fell off my bike. I had a hard time. But that kind of guy is going to go back and do it again. I don't want that in jiu-jitsu, because I've taught 1,000 hardcore animals, in special ops, in high-level military guys with their very specific needs, and competition guys. I've taught all these heroes, alpha male types, that you can make them much better, sure. But I would argue that a normal person would get maybe more out of it than they do.
But we're not normal though, John. People that do jiu-jitsu generally not normal. Sorry to interrupt.
But you know what I mean. So I think that training wheels are important. You want people to come back, and the gi helps that, because it slows it down to the point where their brain has more chance of figuring out what the hell's happening. So as soon as you take the gi off, the speed goes up, the velocity goes up. Slightly better for the person who's not as skilled, because they can escape a little bit easier. But the speed goes up. And that'd be like you teaching me a game or something, and we're just doing it at a fast pace. It's going to be confusing. So the gi slows it down. What we do in my school, everyone's in a gi until blue belt. Post blue belt, like last night's Matt, 36 blue, purple, browns, and blacks on the mat, and they were all no gi. We do no gi in that class, the advanced class, from 1st of November through to Easter. Hot, where it's hotter.
Sweaty, nice.
So when it's getting warmer, we do that for a few reasons. One, it's hot. Let's get the gi off. Two, especially post-Christmas, if some of them have taken 2 weeks off training and they put on 8 kilos, when they come back, the faster pace of it all ups the cardio, so everyone gets back in shape a little quicker than if it was gi.
Interesting.
So we have a seasonal approach to gi and no gi in the advanced class. That's after they get a blue belt. So they've already been training a few years.
Yeah.
Very cool. What are you finding like now for your own development? Like, do you think that the things that you discover, because I follow you very closely on your social media, you're always writing, learning, exploring, opinionating, judging, but in a
Opinionating.
Yeah, I love it though. I love that you're pro-judgmental in a world that is trying to be less judgmental. I think it's powerful what the message you're sending. But do you think that the things that you learn, you already know and have forgotten, or do you think that you are genuinely learning new things in the realms of jiu-jitsu? Like when you look at yourself and this growth, because you've been on this journey for so long, what is your assessment of are you plateaued at this point? Are you growing?
It has to be said that, I'm 60, whatever, 7 or something. So, I'm not as athletic as I was when I was 50, but my mind is better. That's getting better. My body's not, but my mind is.
Same.
Which is how, well, I guess a lot of people can relate to that, I think. So, like this morning, one of the black belts I taught, so I taught something I haven't taught him I haven't taught a couple of years, deep half guard. Deep half guard's not something that's that exciting to me, because I've always had more of a combative bent. You don't want to be lying in a deep half guard with a guy hitting you with the butt of his knife. But I taught it this morning, and I have not taught that to anybody for it might be 4 or 5 years, right? But he wanted to know about it. So we went through 3 or 4 different entries to it, and then a couple of basic sweeps from it in either direction, and then the waiter sweep, just what you normally do, I guess. But what was very interesting to me, because it's so fresh in my mind, because it only happened 4 hours ago, is that as I was explaining the elements of it to him, it was way better in my mind now than what it would have been when I last taught it.
Right.
Well, I saw where it sat in the whole bubble of BJJ, like half guard. How am I going to get there? As they're doing a knee slice over onto the mount, and you catch it and snag and drag the ankle, but then you shoulder under it. Now you're in it. So out of all the 4 or 5 ways that you could get into deep half guard, I'm clear now on what would be the best way to start it. And then what would you do next? And then next, I'm instantly clear on that. Whereas I wasn't clear on that when I learned it. Oh my goodness. Right? I mean, I had this the day before, it was rear triangle. You got someone's back and you trap their arm because you've got them on the non-master side. So you trap their arm to their leg, and then you move away and you get them in a rear triangle. So they can't stack you and they can't posture, which is the 2 big problems people have when they're learning triangle. But so I was teaching that in class for a couple of nights, 2 nights. So what are all the ways we're going to get into rear triangle? So there's a whole bunch of ways, but now, as opposed to 10 years ago, I'm really clear on how we would start that process. 10 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered so much as long as we covered them all. But now I go, oh, hang on, if your first experience of rear triangle is, this is easy, I can see how I can do this. Oh, wow. If that's your experience, you're much more open then to learning all the nuances about rear triangle. But if your first experience of doing it's from the back, where you've got to kill the arm, you've got to get the distance, you've got to juggle all the things into place, that's a wrong way to start it in my view now.
Yeah.
I started a very different way where even the worst on the mat gets it in 1 minute. So their first experience is positive. So blah, blah, but long-winded answer to your question.
Oh, I love it. I fucking love that answer, man. It's amazing. I got goosebumps with this answer. Keep going. Keep long-winding, brother.
That's better now. So that part of me is always improving, and I need no one's help with that.
Yeah.
In fact, they're going to interfere, right? So just leave me alone, and my brain can do that better now than ever before. So that's exciting to me, because that's really interesting. It keeps me very interested in it. Designing how you're going to teach a subject, like we could agree on here's the subject we'll teach, but then we could agree on that. Then we could say, well, what are we going to teach? So we write everything up on our whiteboard, and we might have 18 things to talk about when we say X guard. Okay, agree on that. Here's the first problem: in what order, and what's going to drive that order? Why did you teach that before that? So the question is there an optimal order to introduce these 18 things for X guard? Yes, there is. And so our job is to figure out, as best we can, give it a crack at getting that order right. And so that's something that I really like doing.
Wow.
That and problem solving. And you put those two things together is why I've got a lot of other work outside of the jiu-jitsu mat in government and military and stuff, because I can do those kind of things, not my deep half guard.
Love it.
My shit angle.
From a jiu-jitsu point of view, John, what do you think is next? What's the next sort of big thing that's going to happen? I mean, the last 4 or 5 years, the leg entanglement game has definitely dominated on the scene. What do you think is coming next?
What I'm seeing happening, I'm sure you've seen it too, it's almost like a retro, we're going back to like, look at the ADCC. I mean, arm bars. I mean, right? So I think I think we're starting to. I don't think it's so much anything new. I think it's much more of like what happened in cooking, I guess. So or architecture, or almost anything else you want to name. We had these things come up, brutalist architecture or modern or postmodern, or in cooking, you've got Asian, and then you've got Middle Eastern, and you've got Japanese, whatever. But what's happening now is the interesting fusion of these things that hitherto were not connected, right? They were separate. But now there's all these interesting fusion ideas in architecture, in cooking, in music, in anything. And I think that's going to be, we're going to see more of that. So we're going to see, who's a great example? A good example's Gary Tonin. I mean, it just popped into my head as an example of, if I asked you, what's his game? You're right. If you say what's Eddie Cummings's game, it's going to be, he's going to do butterfly guard, he's going to elevate you up and then entangle the legs and finish with inside Shigurami. And I'd be right 7 times out of 10. With Gary Tonin, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he's approached it so beautifully from so many different places. He is naturally fusing all these different things, seamlessly fusing all these different things. So I'm going to guess, it's a difficult question, but I'm going to guess that we're going to see more of that. And then again, seamless connection between wrestling. I'll put in some judo, the jacket of the competition, and the ground. More instead of these things all being so separate, just much more integrated. So the complexity is going to really go up.
Absolutely.
Not at the lower level, at the higher level, because you have to know so much to do hybridization and seamless integration between different things. At the lower level, you'll still get the same old thing. People will lock in on something and do it for a few years, and they'll change their focus and do it again.
it feels like the resolution of jiu-jitsu is getting the knowledge is higher and higher and higher. It's like it used to be pixelated blocks of knowledge, and now it's just fine detail. Like our coach at Absolute, um his motto is I can always be more obsessed with jiu-jitsu than you. I may not be stronger or bigger, I can always be more obsessed. And like he literally eats, lives, breathes jiu-jitsu. That's it for him.
What's that?
Kamal Akagunduz, he's the CBD coach at Absolute. He's just
Okay.
very focused on the nuances, the basics, but incredibly,
Yeah.
dives deep on every little thing, and just he's fascinated by that game. And I'm sure he's not alone. He could just spend days and days and days going over a position, seeing what's next and how it can integrate it.
So you'll do half guard, and then you'll get the underhook and pop out to dogfight, and then you'll try to like do a shitty double leg. And then 4 years later, having not looked at it, you'll do the dogfight. You'll snag and drag his ankle, pop out to dogfight. But then as you're driving, you'll make sure your fingers are turned away from him and not forward, so you can get drive. And then the next thing you'll learn another year later is before you do that, headbutt his far knee, which puts weight on it so he can't stand up, and then take him down. And it's not that you were taught these things, but your mind it's just become, you've developed a palette for nuance and detail that you didn't have.
Yes.
So you can't not see it. And then
also, there's a collectiveness about that as well, because while you've developed that, so is almost everybody else. And that is the thing, like you got to keep trying to find that edge somehow, that's what I see. I'm observing.
I love it. That attention to detail. That's one of the things that we try to, on the mat, I want to create a culture. So that begs a question, what kind of culture? And the first thing in that is attention to detail. The second thing is how can we get you over a couple of years to learn how to extract maximum value from any session in anything. And then the third thing is not be there for yourself. Be there for others completely. And that seems silly, but if everyone's on board with that, you've got 28 people in the room there for you, which is fucking awesome. So provided we're all on board with the same. So you're trying to develop this culture. Attention to detail is our number one. I was just in Japan a couple of months ago. And, if I had to sum up Japan in one sentence, and then a paragraph and then a book and then, but you start with a sentence, that's easy to remember. And it's attention to detail, right? Japanese. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're the gardener. Fuck. They are like unbelievably, and I just think, wow, that is so cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, my mind is being blown on this episode. I've got to say, man, this is a deep dive. This is very interesting stuff.
John, can I ask your opinion about PEDs, performance enhancing drugs? They've definitely been around in the news for jiu-jitsu on the competition scene. A lot of people think that there's not really any high-level people that are not on something. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, look, I think who am I to judge what people want to do? Like, people can do all kinds of stuff, right? And because we're all at different spots, when you're 18 and you're 20, I'm not that guy. And when I'm 30, I'm not that guy. And when you're 50, you're not, you keep, one would hope that you're not just like, you're continually reinventing yourself. So I'm not judging anyone for what they do, but I think when you have a sport, when you're playing any game, we need to be clear on the rules. If we're playing chess, we need to be clear on the rules, right? And if I say to you, we're going to play chess now, and but I want you to drink this bottle of whiskey before we play, and I'm not. That's the equivalent of me. Yeah. I mean, in a weird way, but it's the equivalent of me. In other words, I want a competitive advantage. No, I don't like that idea. So I'm up for drug testing. I'm not against people using drugs. Do you understand? I'll make a distinction. They can do what they want. I shouldn't be telling another human being what they can do or not with their own body, provided they don't, provided they're law abiding. I mean, no, I don't care. I'm not judging them either. But not if we're playing a game that's got a predefined set of rules. And Now, that begs the question, do we still need to talk about the rules? Yeah, okay, there's room for that, but it's like trans people in sport. Look, it wasn't a thing way back because it wasn't anyone's psyche it's not going to happen. So that now it's happening and it's got some momentum. Shit, we need to sort this shit out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. 100%.
We need to get clear on the rules. We need to agree on the rules, and then we fight by the rules. If it's a sport.
Yeah.
Apart from that, do what you want.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier in the episode that you'd softened on your views on something. And like, I'm actually fascinated to know if you are noticing yourself softening, or what areas are you mostly noticing yourself softening in as you're in, like you are at the most intelligent you've ever been. You're the most intelligent version of yourself you've ever been. So what are the things you've softened on in recent times that you were very attached to previously?
I was really attached to the idea that if we're going to practice what we're doing, jiu-jitsu or martial arts, that it's got to be functional. So is it going to work in a fight? And I was about that for a long time. I've got reasons for that. From my earlier life in Indonesia, jumping fences and working undercover with the different things and a lot of violence. And I have friends getting killed and stabbed and heads chopped off and all kinds of shit. So I had my reasons, and I had personal reasons probably from when I was a little toddler, but I don't believe that now. I mean, like if I've got work and I've got to design this thing for these guys who are going to go and do this other thing, then we'll get very fucking specific and create a scenario and run all the scenarios that we can imagine and test, and figure it out, and then create a training model for it. But for jiu-jitsu, no. How many of my people in my school tonight are going to get into a fight in the next year? Probably none. Yeah. So, if I'm only about, does this work in a fight? I'm too narrow focused, and I'm also going to exclude a lot of people that I would otherwise gather. Like, so we're going to have lots of there's going to be a couple of tonight's class. We'll have a couple of 4 or 5 policemen. There's a couple of doctors. There's some engineers. I mean, there's all these people, right, from every demographic, and I don't think many of them are even thinking about fighting. Right? Yeah, they're just enjoying the problem solving, the camaraderie, the exercise, the challenge of it, all these other things. So that's something I've really softened on now. So I look at someone who runs a taekwondo school and I go, they're probably ticking a lot of the boxes. Yeah. Right. Now they might be delusional if they start talking about fighting. Okay. Then I'll call them out. But as long as they don't say that, I'm on board. Yeah. Absolutely. So, love it. That.
Sounds good. We only have just over 4 minutes left, John, so it's probably a good time to wind it up. Do you have any final words for our listeners? You've dropped a lot of wisdom already, but any more parting thoughts that you could share?
As I was talking about, we're all of us are into jiu-jitsu for very different, not very different, but slightly different reasons. What you get out of it, what I get out of it, whether you're a white belt, black belt, world champion, complete fumbling peanut. We can't say that the world champion gets more value than the guy who can't do a star jump. Maybe he gets more value, right? Yeah. So we're all in there. And I think it's important to remember, whether you're a world champion, whether you're a black belt, whether you're a school owner, whether you're a white belt, blue belt, purple, each of us is contributing to the culture on the mat, whether we know it or not. Wow. My advice would be aware that that's true, and then say, are you contributing to the culture in a good way or a bad way? Are you making it better or worse for you being there? And everyone can ask that question. And there are world champions. It would be better if they weren't there. And there are, so that's what I think is important if we want to create a good culture. But first of all, you've got to know what kind of culture you want to create. And then you ask that question and then get the people on board with it, because people often say it's the instructor who, that's his job. No, it's not in my view. In my view, that is not what's going on. The instructor might have a vision for the culture, but the culture is shaped by the top cadre of students, the top 20% of the school.
Interesting.
And
Yeah,
if they're not on board, it's all over the place.
yeah.
Wow.
No,
Anyway.
that's true. Yeah, no, that's I agree 100%. I don't know about you, Anton, but yeah,
I'm
that,
totally
that
on board.
rings bells. Yeah.
John just drops truth bombs. We're gonna keep getting you back on, man. You are. I think you're tied for the most people.
Yeah, I
Most
think
times
so.
anyone's been on
Yeah,
the show,
three
but
times. We'll have to
we
do
need you
another
right at the
4
top
before
of the
the year's
list,
out.
man. You should be a regular. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about
No,
it.
no, there's plenty of people more interesting than me. You can go and hunt them out. There's billions of them.
I don't know,
Yeah,
brother.
we're doing our best. We're doing our best. But thank you once again for giving up your time. And we know you're a busy man. Really appreciate it.
I'm not. I'm
So
retired.
we have a couple of episodes banked up, but we'll have this one out in a couple of weeks for you. If you could share it, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And as I said, we now have Roll or Die rash guards. So listeners, we will be putting the link up for that where you can get yourself a Roll or Die rash guard. We hope to have more merchandise down the track, but thanks very much, and we'll see you on the mats.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Anton.
Yeah.